How you doing, everybody? It's your boy Wardy, and as you can see, we're back at it talking about the Amazings. And folks, I'm pumped up to get into today's video. Why, you ask? Because spring training is here, baby. Finally, we're seeing these guys roll out. Pitchers and catchers are reporting that we discussed the other day with my man, Giraffe Neck Mark, so make sure to check that out in case you haven't already. And we see Francisco Lindor in camp. A lot of guys are starting to show up now, and we're seeing these little highlight reel videos of them just warming up. People overreacting to prospects' batting stances and or swings, i.e. Kevin Parada yesterday, for example. But it's always an exciting time seeing baseball right around the corner. We got games, again, less than 2 weeks away. But even though spring training is officially upon us here for the Mets and baseball, it is not the end of the MLB offseason. As something David Stearns and now most recently Francisco Lindor reaffirmed today, the Mets are not done making moves. So in today's video, we're going to highlight what Lindor had to say about David Stearns and his offseason moves thus far and what could be on the horizon, and ultimately what else could be had for the Mets this offseason, as it clearly looks like they still have a couple moves to be had here. But before we break it all down, make sure to smash that like and subscribe button, as it is the easiest and best way to support the channel. Thank you all so much in advance, as always, as we have amazing things coming, spring training and all throughout the regular season here on WardyNYM. And also thank you all so much in advance from hearing from today's video sponsor. Before we get further into the show, I have to let you all know about today's video sponsor, that being Aura. Because if you're like me, you are constantly tired of receiving spam phone calls to the point where you don't even want to answer your phone. Literally, so many times I've had spam callers call to the point where if there's a number that I see calling me and I don't know them, I don't want to answer because I automatically think it's some type of spam. And this is where Aura comes into play, because data brokers, as many of you know too, are making a fortune selling your information to robocallers, spammers, and others who want to learn more about you, like where you live, for example. And Aura, what separates them from the rest here is they can identify data brokers exposing your information and submit opt-out requests on your behalf. Brokers are legally required to remove your info if you ask them to, but they make it super hard to do so. Let Aura handle it for you without a problem. Aura also offers so much more to protect you and your family from online threats you can't see. It's really easy to set up as well, so you don't have to download several different apps to get things like parental controls, antivirus, VPN, password management, identity theft insurance, and more. You can get everything at one affordable price. So again, let Aura do the hard work for you of keeping yourself safe online so you can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. You can either let people continue to exploit and profit off your private information, or you could do the smart route and go to aura.com/WardyNYM, and that way you get yourself a 2-week free trial, also linked down below in the description. And once more, shout out to Aura for being the sponsor of today's video. Alrighty, folks, now I'm going to play you guys the clip from Francisco Lindor earlier today when interviewed, talking about David Stearns and the offseason thus far. Just a fair warning, the volume might be a little bit lower than the volume you're hearing from me, so if so, just raise it up for the 20 to 30 second clip, and here we go.
I like them. I feel Stern did a really good job. They had a plan, an approach, and they executed. I feel like there's still, I think, a couple pieces from what I keep on hearing from Stern, and that he has said in the media a couple times already that there might be 1 or 2 things. But yeah, I feel like.
So the Mets aren't done, folks. Again, we heard this from David Stearns himself recently when asked from Andy Martino, is your offseason pretty much wrapped up? And he replied by saying, I don't know if it was Andy actually that asked him, whoever it was, he said, as we go into spring training, moves are inevitably going to be happening still, especially in more recent off seasons. That has been the case. They've dragged on quite a bit in spring training, as there's a lot of talent still out there, and I have a free agent market, especially right now, but also the trade market too. And here we have from Francisco Lindor himself, so I want to know your reactions down below to Lindor's comments here. Again, it doesn't get any better from hearing it basically from the source himself. You have people questioning, should I believe this reporter, that reporter? I'm going to go on a limb and say that I do believe the guy who is one of the leaders of this organization has had conversations with David Stearns and knows very well about how they're operating. That's something that's abundantly clear. Now, obviously, the Mets don't go out of their way to roll out a red carpet for Lindor on every single move that they're going to make throughout the offseason, but they do talk to him about these things, as he, again, is the $300+ million man and will be with the team for hopefully, again, the next decade as our star shortstop, the best currently in all the National League, and I will stand by that statement and then some. But let's talk about this now, because yes, the Mets are going to be making moves still, at least one or two here. So the question is, what exactly could those moves be? Now, we've heard a lot of rumblings. The Mets have been connected to Jorge Soler, who has since signed a $3 or $45 million deal or so with the San Francisco Giants. Nice AAV there, but I'm curious how he's going to look in that San Francisco lineup. Again, a park that is not easy to hit bombs out of unless you're Barry Bonds, for example. But then you get on to, okay, we talked about Lindor here, and really, why is this such an emphasis with his ability to showcase that, yes, David Stearns is not done making moves from everything that I'm hearing, not only from his pressers, but obviously the in-house conversations that they've had. So if Jorge Soler is not an option, he's out of here. JD Martinez is a bat that the Mets have been connected to, but it seems like that still isn't a strong likelihood unless he really falls into the Mets' lap dollar-wise. Now, here's the thing. We're already in spring training. Games are right around under 2 weeks away at the time of recording this. There's a great possibility that JD Martinez is still available a week from now in this free agent market. So if that's the case, this is where it can really play into the Mets' hand. Short-term deals is where the Mets can get very creative here. Do I foresee the Mets doing short-term deals with guys with qualifying offers, whether that be a Matt Chapman or a Blake Snell or a Cody Bellinger? No, I do not foresee that to be the case whatsoever. As much as I would love Belly as a short-term option, I don't see it happening, especially if it's, say, a 1 or 2 year deal. I just don't see why the Mets would end up doing that with the current stage of the organization. But what I do think makes sense for them, and what wouldn't shock me, is A, trades happening, because again, the Mets have room for one more roster move, or else they have to do further roster moves. If they add two, then they either have to DFA a guy, or they have to figure out sending guys down. So there's creative options here for them, and when you evaluate what could be out there in the free agent market, in my opinion, it's either going to be another reliever, which again would be a little surprising at this point with the amount of arms and depth that they have. But again, the more the merrier. You can never have enough arms. Or two, and what very well could be the case here, another bat that they have been trying to get all throughout the offseason, but maybe not a name that you're hoping for, maybe not the sexiest name, but more of a contact guy, a guy that can help out in the infield, especially if Brett Beatty and or Mark Vientos has their struggles, like a Gio Urshela that we talked about a lot on the channel, like most recently we talked over the past week or two, a Donovan Solano. These are guys that, again, can fill that void, can be pinch hitters for you late in game, can come in defensively and handle their own without a problem, especially in the case of Urshela. He's right around a league average defender, or, slightly below league average, but certainly an upgrade currently over what the Mets have in the kids. And while I want the kids to get a leash, do not get me wrong, that is most certainly going to be the case this season. David Stearns has made that abundantly clear. Let's not also forget that it's not bad to have a cushion, especially when injuries and inconsistencies inevitably happen, for a team that at the end of the day is still pushing to make playoffs this season. And furthermore, if we get into trade options, this is where things get very creative. Could the Mets still be active in the starting pitching front? I'm not going to get my hopes up on it, but we all know they could use a bona fide number 3 starter in this rotation still, even with the depth that they currently have. One thing that I have heard, shout out to some people, including Keith at the Shane Sons podcast, a good buddy of mine. He told me, because he was at the season ticket holder meeting for the Mets with David Stearns not all that long ago, that David put a heavy emphasis that, we're still very much active this offseason. We're far from being done with moves still. He's been active in trade negotiations. And something that he looks for in players in particular is their previous stops handling big markets, headlined by cities like, yes, Boston. So does that mean anything in particular, whether it means the Mets' chances of, say, getting a JD Martinez? Does it mean that maybe the Mets could potentially have a trade with the Boston Red Sox some way, shape, or form? I'm not entirely sure, but what I am sure of, again, is that the Mets are not done making moves. So it's up for interpretation at this point as to, or really assumption, guess game as to what these moves will be. But if you're asking for me, one, we all know the Mets could definitely still use another bat, even with all Mark Vientos can potentially give you. With that clear uncertainty there, it's imperative for them to still add a bat, in my opinion. It would make a lot of sense. I'm not going to be crying if the Mets roll into the season with DJ Stewart and Mark Vientos, but there's a reason why they've been connected to a bat, trying to add one at the right price for months on end. They clearly want to add there, and they can find that happy medium of what they're looking for. So hopefully we do soon find out finally in that regard, as we're getting spring training games under 2 weeks away right now. There's not a lot of time, and ultimately you want to get these guys in as soon as humanly possible. We all know that waiver wire is going to be a big thing that happens without spring. You're going to see guys being waived, DFA'd, all these types of things. But at the core of this, the Mets are bound rather to make 1, 2, or more moves here still, and it would not shock me if both these moves will be of significance in the sense where they are certainly going to be impacting the club. Now, whether it's a contact hitter, decent OBP guy coming off the bench, and a Solano or Urshela versus, say, a bat like a JD Martinez, or trading for a top-tier starter, again, we'll find out to what degree are these moves going to be, but we do know they're going to happen, and hearing from Lindor's mouth himself leaves you with the guess game as to what exactly it could be. Again, Gio Urshela, best friends with Francisco Lindor, teammates during their time in Cleveland, Mets third base coach, was their third base coach during their time in Cleveland too, plenty connection there, obviously, and Carlos Mendoza during their time with the Yanks between Urshela and Mendoza. I think Urshela just makes a lot of sense, similar to how I felt about Andrew Chafin and others, so that's why it wouldn't shock me if it doesn't happen at this rate. It's like every time it seems like a guy makes too much sense, it doesn't happen. I will say, however, though, they finally made some moves that I did think make plenty sense. Headlined by, again, a Shintaro Fujinami. I think is a guy that has so much untapped potential. And I spoke with Trevor May, former Mets reliever and former teammate of Fujinami's with the Oakland A's this past season. Check out that recent video we did on the channel and overall our bullpen breakdown where Trevor had so much fantastic insight and everything you need to know about these Mets relievers that he knows basically all of them on a personal level to a degree. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below. What moves do you think the Mets are still going to have this offseason? Do you think it's going to be bat? Do you think it's going to be reliever? Do you think it's going to be multiple? Whatever they are, drop them down below. Thank you again once more. Stay tuned for consistent coverage on all things Mets, all offseason, spring training, and in-season long. I'll talk to you again real soon. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.